Hello, this is Jacob with JNP Electronics, also known as HubaSwift on the ModWiggler forums. Here I have a quad sample and hold module. It consists of 4 identical sample and hold circuits, each of which has an internal trigger oscillator as well as an internal noise source normal to the input. So let's take a look at the first one here. If we flip up the switch labeled INT or EXT for internal or external, we can turn on the internal oscillator. And at this point, the lowest rate will give us about 1 cycle every 1.5 seconds or so. And then as we turn it up, around 3 to 4, it'll go from LFO rates up into the audio rates for all sorts of quantizing or high frequency effects that you might want to do with the module. And when switched to the internal trigger option, it actually also has a extra feature where the trigger jack functions as a output for its internal trigger oscillator. So the output waveform is going to be a saw wave that's 10 volts peak to peak, centered around 0 volts. And you could use that as a modulation source, clock, or you could actually also use it because it goes up into audio rates as a drone oscillator if you want to. It's a bit fiddly to set the exact frequency, but it is doable. When set to external trigger source, the knob will actually function as a threshold instead for the input voltage. So you can choose how long or when exactly it's sampling along the note. So for an example, if you were to feed in a ramp wave into the trigger input of each of these, you could then set a different trigger point for each of them to have them sequentially trigger however you want. And there's also a switch right here for sample and hold or track sample and hold functionality. All right, so let's get into some patches. Right here we have just the sample and hold output going into the control level of the Minimoog filter, and from there just straight into our output. So we'll turn up the volume a bit, and then increase the rate. Here I have a triangle wave from an oscillator patched into the input of the sample and hold, and we'll just hear what that sounds like as I turn the sample frequency down. But that's all pretty simple. Let's take a look at some more interesting patches. Here I have all 4 of the internal trigger oscillators being mixed together to form a sort of chord generator, and that's being inputted into the Minimoog filter. And with each of the knobs here corresponding to a different note. This patch is a sort of downward staircase generator. I have the output waveform from number 1 going into the input of number 2. So if we listen to the audio, number 1 controls the decay rate, and number 2 is controlling the number of steps. So yeah, all sorts of things you can do with these. It's just a basic demonstration. But yeah, if you're interested in buying one, just shoot me an email or message me on ModWiggler and I'll set you up. Cheers.